there's some issues with the vehicle that I chose, the ADRs. Struggling. I should go with ADRs as my mechanism. They're a little tougher to find information on.
Oh.
It'll work out. I got her.
So we don't have the cell phone box, so you guys are on the honor system. The honor system is, if you catch you look at your cell phone, we'll throw you out.
We break it. It's honor mixed with fear.
Yeah.
Where's the bell?
We'll bring the bell back on Monday.
Angie's looking for a quick grant.
Do you need it?
Maybe.
She needs
Okay.
$1,000.
Still get $1,000. The offer's still good. The bell's in the office if anyone wants to use it.
Just for fun, not for real.
How's everyone else feeling? How's everyone feeling about your idea and promotions? Anyone want to share any thoughts or things you've learned, things you're worried about? No? Cool. Fred?
Well, I feel like I spend too much time on each sentence, so that's just what I'm struggling with right now.
Too much time in each sentence.
Yeah, but I'm happy with the direction where it's going.
Yeah. So, I mean, your speed is what it is, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be better to be faster, but as long as you're progressing, I don't worry too much about it.
I have a general question. So you've done research for a promo. You
Yeah.
start writing. I like to just vomit stuff on the page and then fix it as I go. How often do you find yourself having to do more research to fill in gaps once you've started? Is that pretty usual?
I think it's pretty usual because
Okay,
the act of writing itself is actually a form of thinking.
Correct. And
So you need to be generating ideas as you write. So what I tend to do if I'm kind of in the flow and I'm in the middle of writing something is I'll just put in like in all caps, like research this or put in chart here or go Google this topic. Just so it doesn't throw you off too much.
Yeah.
But
so you can keep the flow going. You can just
Yeah.
skip through. You know that what you have is a placeholder and you just keep writing.
yeah. In fact, another technique I wanted to share with you guys might be useful is every time that I open up my document, so if I go to lunch, I'll save it because I'm paranoid or, whatever. Every time I open it up, I start at the very top again and kind of read through and make little fixes and improvements till I get to the very spot where I left off. I think it does two things. One, you can kind of fix all the silly typos and things in the copy while you're doing it, just going to make it better every time. But I think it also gives you some momentum because otherwise you're starting out cold and you're like, what do I do now? Versus when you start at the very top, hopefully if you've done it correctly, you have an idea, you're excited, and you express the idea in the lead in an effective way, you're going to start getting excited about it again and be like, oh yeah, I can't wait to have this next, and you could, actually write it, So that's a technique you might want to use. Go ahead, Scott.
Is there a problem with that where it's like I've read it so many times and I'm so close to it, I don't even know if it's good or not. Like, I just know it so well. That
Yeah,
like,
I mean, it's going to
is.
happen. That's one of the reasons why you want to get other people's feedback.
Yeah.
But there's ways to you can reread it in a way that, like reading it out loud, like Evaldo talked about in his email, that's another way to kind of break yourself. Like sometimes printing it out versus reading it on the screen is useful. Sometimes I would change the font from like serif to sans serif. I don't remember what the difference is. I wasn't paying attention. but to go from Arial to Times Roman, whatever that is, or vice versa, it was nice to look a little different on page. You change the size of the font. That way it kind of looks new. Kind of a useful tip.
One tip I use is right before you go to lunch, it's like leave an idea open.
Yeah, that's a good one too. I've heard that. So in other words, like break it off in the middle of a sentence for that use before. So that way when you come back, right away, you're excited to finish that sentence. And right away you're getting some traction.
Unless you forget what you were thinking. And that's
Yeah, I know. Like,
You're
that
gonna
would
do
be so
yourself.
good, right?
There goes 2%.
Yeah. Are you guys continuing to do your idea every day and read a promotion every day and write a page a day? You should do that till Monday. Next week, you're off the hook for how week. but I'm hoping you understand by now, like, how useful those exercises are, and to continue to do them moving forward, whatever schedule works for you. That makes sense. Rob?
So, just a general question again with writing the promo. It's like I sort of have I've got an outline that's kind of, I've got a couple of promo that I could really detail the outlines, and I'm like kind of making a hybrid out of that. And I sort of sense that once I finish, I'm gonna like go reread it, change a lot of stuff. Do you guys ever? I was just thinking, like, do you ever write a promo and then just like read a bunch of different promos after you've written, so like sort of just massage it and add new ideas in? And...
I'm constantly tinkering with it.
Okay.
It's a little bit dangerous though, where are you really improving it, or are you just kind of trapped in the dip and just digging around and wasting time? That's something you need to figure out. Like, at some point, it's like 80-20, right?
Yeah.
The only 20% of what you're really doing is going to make much of a difference. So you can waste forever spinning around trying to make the perfect promo, and you never will.
Okay.
So as long as you're making improvements that you can recognize are going to substantially increase response, then it's worthwhile. Like, your first draft is your first draft. No one has to ever see that other than you. I mean, that thing kind of takes the pressure off, right? It can be horrible, and no one will know. And you just keep rewriting it. I mean, like, the first draft you show somebody probably shouldn't be the first draft you wrote.
Sure. Okay. Cool. Thanks. That wasn't a very succinct question.
Just give it to somebody, right? Like, after you've tinkered with it so much and you're like, I don't know if I'm making this thing better or worse, at some point just find somebody you respect and give it to them and say, can you read this for me? Can you tell me what you think? Like Brad said, you probably shouldn't do that after you just vomit on a page. Like, you should probably read it a couple times and type it up. But if you find yourself to that point that you're like, I'm not sure if I'm making this better, and I got 18 other promos, and I keep adding stuff, but does that make it better or worse? Just give it to somebody and ask them to do, at worst, one of those confusing, unbelievable, boring reads for you. What do you think about the idea, and what do you think about anything that's confusing and unbelievable for you? The power of an editor, right? Who said that quote, that behind every great writer is a great editor? Somebody said it. So it's the truth.
So these are going to be relatively short sessions today and Monday, for right about to the end. Today I'm going to give a little talk about a mindset idea you might want to play around with, and then we're going to talk about short copy. You guys already had a presentation from Greg on Monday about writing lists and emails, short copy. I'm just going to give you my take on it. And then on Monday, we're just going to do some Q&A and wrap it up. And
Are we doing that here?
Yeah. So Monday here at Spark. So I want to talk to you guys today about a new idea that I call ferocious copywriting. Ferocious copywriting. Let me just ask you first, like, what does the word ferocious mean to you? Somebody say something.
Aggressive.
But I can't hear me.
Aggressive.
Aggressive. Okay, that's good.
Fuck shit up.
Fuck shit up. Okay, that's cool. Any other? Rage.
Violence.
Violence.
Yeah, furious.
Furious. Okay. Kind of negative, but yeah. Any other thoughts?
Forced to be reckoned with.
Forced to be reckoned with. That's cool. I like that too. Anyone else?
I just feel right fast.
Being able to write fast. So I look at ferocious copywriting as like a mindset and an attitude. It's not really like a technique or anything, but it's just a way of looking at the world. And it means to me, you always go for the throat of your prospect with your copy, going for the throat. It means you wake up every day and you're ready to pounce on new opportunities. You're constantly stalking new ideas, new proof, new copy techniques, new ways to improve your copy, new promotions to write. You walk through life with your eyes open and your ears open, and you're able to sniff out opportunity. Ferocious copy writing to me is every time your copy generates an order, you taste blood and you like it and you want more. I I think when you're a ferocious copywriter, there's no such thing as failure in your world. The forest is always full of game. The gazelle or deer escapes, then you pick yourself up and continue to hunt, because that's what you do. Does that make sense?
Sure does.
So I want you to picture in your mind a puma, a tiger, or a lion. And I want you to imagine it like right here on this table. And it could be whatever kind of big cat you want to think of. Big roaring cat, glowing amber eyes, rippling muscles, very sleek. Okay, it's ready to pounce. It's sitting right there. I want you to imagine its like claws, like claw on the table. Okay? And then I want you to picture the cat being like 40 feet tall, like bigger than this room. All right? Now I want you to like think of this 40-foot tall giant cat, puma, tiger, and I want you to like put yourself inside the cat so you're looking out of its eyes. Okay, and I want you to see like just like bags of money like everywhere. Okay? Just ideas that are just filled with money sitting everywhere, and like thousands of customers out there ready with their money to hand to you. Okay, so that's like, I want you to picture all that, and then I want you to think in your mind, like, go for it. Okay, you can even like think of like a roar. I'm not going to do it, but yeah. So like that's what when I'm talking about when I say like ferocious copywriting, like putting yourself in that state, like every day when you wake up, you be best. Definitely whenever you get to the office or wherever it is you work, and definitely before you sit down and write a single word of copy, is get yourself in a state. Like I call mine ferocious copywriting. Sometimes I do the cat exercise, but whatever you need to do for yourself. But you don't ever want to just be like, oh, I got to write some more copy, because that's death. You don't want to do that. You want to get yourself in the biggest, most juiced up emotional state you can get. Okay. Two other things about ferocious copy. Consider. Number one, it's all about the customers. It's not about you. Keep that in mind. It's always about the customers, not about you. And I quote a guy named like Blair Warren, and he had this interesting book he's written called, I can't remember the name of it right now, but he studied like Hitler and like cult leaders and con men, trying to figure out how they're able to be so persuasive, which is kind of really extreme, but those people are very effective in very unethical ways. Yeah. So you can apply some of the same techniques and mindsets in ethical ways. And talking about it's all about the customers, not about you. Cult leaders and spiritual teachers often see themselves as part of an important mission, and this gives them a sense of power the masses can't imagine. Con men often see themselves as much smarter than their victims and feel this distinction somehow gives them the right to swindle the common man. It's almost as if the con man is doing the victims a favor by educating them to the ways of the world. This right, these people feel, grants them a power that is foreign to most of us. To tap into this power, we need to only stop and consider our communication in a new light. How does our product, service, proposal serve a higher, nobler purpose than might first appear? What others think in this regard is irrelevant. You're not looking for talking points and buzzwords. You're trying to discover your most powerful beliefs surrounding your message. When you do, you discover the beginning of conviction. Do you feel a strong conviction for what you are trying to communicate? If not, your prospects won't feel it either, no matter how many tricks and strategies you try to put over on them. It all starts with us. So my question for you is, what's your conviction about your idea and your offer? What's your conviction about your idea and your offer? And I'll say one thing that's worked for me is that I feel like that everything we do, everything we sell, every idea we put out there, we're giving the customer a choice they didn't have before. Whether or not the strategy works or doesn't work, whether or not it actually makes them money or doesn't make them money, we're interrupting their day and giving them a choice they never had before. And I think choice is good. And that's one of my convictions when I write copy is like I'm giving people a brand new choice they've never considered before. And I think that's pretty exciting and cool. That works for me. I mean, even if I'm even a little skeptical of the actual underlying investment idea or the strategy, it helps to really believe in the editor at least, and knowing, meeting them and believing they're a very smart person, has good ideas. But even if their ideas are wrong, we're still giving somebody a choice they didn't have the day, right before they clicked our ad. So that's number one. So with the customers. Number two is to play games you can't lose. And one game I play that I can't lose is when I'm in my best state, I really don't even care about failure. I realize that getting ideas and acquiring customers and monetizing customers, it's just what I do. It's part of my identity. I'm a copywriter. So if my ideas work or they don't work, my promos work like gangbusters, if they bomb, it doesn't matter. Either way, I'm going to keep at it. And every time I write a promotion, I'm going to learn something new, even if it works or doesn't work. And I think if you look at it that way, like really you're playing a game you can't lose then. Because as long as you keep playing, you're going to keep winning. You're going to keep learning and getting better. So keep that in mind when you're working on your promotion. Keep that in mind when you're looking at how your promotion does. Because at this point, it's either going to work or not work. Nobody knows. And it's not really, again, to the point about the customer, it's not really even our choice anyways. So, thoughts on ferocious copywriting? Does it sound like something that'd be useful, not useful?
I think that conviction thing you talked about
Conviction?
is 100% necessary for your idea.
Mhm.
Yesterday, I went to customer care. I was on the phone with someone listening to like these other people calling in, and these people are completely unsure about what they're doing. Like there were several calls where they were calling like, should I get rid of like this service, or like maybe should I keep that one? Do you think that this is gonna happen? What should I do with this? I'm just like, I don't know. To me, it struck me deep because I was just like, yo, we write to these people, and we're writing to like help, right? Because I remember Joe mentioned this like a while back. The people that could sell to them are like Wall Street and all that, and you saw that. That shit was terrible. People lost all the time. So you have to believe without that your idea will do everything to help.
Yeah. I mean, people desire certainty. They want someone to tell them what to do. That's just a fact. Most people are not leaders. So it's really our jobs to give them that choice and to be certain enough to generate the feeling of certainty in them, if that makes sense.
2 points on that too. So what Manny just said and what Ryan just said, number one, you have to have conviction, right? So Manny just said that very well, and Ryan said it earlier. Number two is come back to that authority thing. And Ryan just mentioned it, and Manny teased it, which is these people want to be commanded. They want to be commanded. They want someone in an authoritative position telling them exactly this is what to do next. So you look on that like from a micro level, and this is where I will always delete the words or the phrase, and I told you guys this earlier, I think. I think shows up in copy all the time. It does not belong there 95% of the time, because you want to be writing an authoritative figure that is telling them exactly what is going to happen and exactly what to do based on the conviction that author has. So that's where a tiny phrase like I think comes back full circle to that uncertainty of where they call us on the phone. Well, I don't know what to do, right? I don't even know what publications I should have. They want someone from an authoritative position to command them what to do. So when you write, most of the time, write in that authoritative voice most of the time. Remember Abby the other day covered all those voice types, and one of them was like the altitude type, which is like, I don't know anything about anything. So I've lost all my money. Just don't trust me, right? It's a very difficult voice to write a promotion in, because why would you want to trust that guy that does that, right? He could do it editorially. It's very difficult from a promotional side. Most of the time from the promotional side, you want to write from that authoritative voice and tell them exactly what's about to happen and exactly what to do next. Command them. Click that button at the bottom of that promo. Change their life.
Part of it, I think, is getting yourself in that state yourself, though, where you really are confident enough in your idea and believing enough that it's just going to show up in your copy. I mean, I think when people do that, they are kind of tipping their hand that maybe they don't believe in their idea enough, that they just can't say it. They have to hedge it. Don't hedge. Go all in on it.
So we're going to come full circle for just a second, or give me 60 seconds. Come full circle. Think back to the early stages of Copy Camp. So our job as copywriters is roughly about 6 promotions a year. So we have 6 promotions a year that we're supposed to be writing. At the same point, we should all be writing down an idea a day. So you have 6 ideas out of 365 that you need to execute on. You cannot write ferocious copy unless you have full conviction in that idea. At the same point, you have a massive psychological principle that we can use to our benefit in copy, but yet works against us as human beings writing copy, which is commitment and consistency. At some point, you will believe you should start down the path of an idea. Recognize if you don't have full conviction on that idea and drop it and move on to your next idea. Don't suffer from commitment and consistency. You're never going to write a good promo if you don't have full conviction about that, because you can't have full ferociousness about that. So that's an important point, because again, as human beings, we will commit to things and we will want to see those things through. Sometimes, a lot of times, I've seen copywriters write bad ideas that they'll tell me very late in the process they don't believe in that idea because they've done the research and it's not there or anything like that. Just drop it. Just drop it and move on. You got 364 other ideas in that year you can execute on. You only need to do 6 of them. So don't suffer from commitment and consistency. If you don't have full conviction, you're never going to have full ferociousness. You only have to do 6 out of 365 a year. And chances are probably 1 of them or 2 of them are good, right? So try to find out which 1 or 2 are good. Don't be afraid to drop the ideas that you're not ferocious about.
Now, switching gears to short copy.
So most of you guys know, the short copy stuff because almost everybody's been writing short copy stuff, right? And short copy stuff is going to be all the inserts and all the lift notes and everything like that certain of you have been competing against each other for. So this is coming at the end of Copy Camp, only because we're trying to do a promo in a linear order. So we started with the big idea, we went headline and lead, we went all types of proof, we went for the structure, we went with the offer, then we walked you through the more operational stuff of getting a promo done, things like compliance, things like design, things like traffic sources. But now you got to drive traffic to that promo, so this is where the short copy stuff comes in. So again, a lot of this, like Ryan said, we're going to go through the session relatively quickly because a lot of this is stuff that you've already done and stuff that you've already seen. So you're at the awareness stage that we can cover this quickly, even though we're covering it very late in the Copy Camp process, because this is the next step in the whole process.
So I think you probably understand the importance of short copy by now based on Scott's talk, and we went over before, but basically it can have a huge impact on your results.
Huge, huge, huge impact on your results.
And like one of the things I'll note of the 6 different ones on this list here, I mean, obviously we're here to make more money. We know traffic plus converting copy equals boom. I'm trying to get it open, get someone's attention, get a click, get 20% click-through rate. And we're also trying to warm up the sale. That's kind of like the book Persuasion, if you want to read that, by Cialdini. But as Scott showed us, like the copy in the marketing copy they're seeing, the display ad, lift note, insert ad, that can radically change your conversion rate. So ideally you want the highest click-through rate, but also the highest conversion rate. So just to keep that in mind, the idea of like congruence. Sometimes we're always testing stuff, and the problem is like the more direct the short copy is, as people see that, they become numb to it. So they have to get more and more indirect. So there's always a process on that. So I think Scott made this point. It's always better to start with direct first, because you're not tricking anybody. People are not going to click on the idea. They're not going to buy the idea in the beginning. So, if you're like, if Bitcoin 2.0 is your headline and your big idea, you better have that in the initial lift notes that go out, because either that idea is going to work or not work. And if you do something completely incongruent, it's just going to make it even worse. So, so why do people open and click on emails? I would say curiosity is the number one most powerful thing. I mean, self-interest being secondary. So I think if people are not curious, even if it seems like they're interested, they're still skeptical now. You really have to get people curious. Some other things that why people like to read emails: news, especially our audience. Remember, we're in the alternative news business. So it's important to read things like Drudge and Zero Hedge because they're giving the alternative news. You can get ideas from there, but sometimes some of that stuff can be maybe even mainstream. You want to be a little bit even farther left or right from that.
That's where you pay attention to the headlines in Drudge, rather than just click and read. You pay attention to how they look while you're clicking.
Yeah, I think Drudge is a master at headlines. Every time you read that guy every day, you're getting a clinic at headlines. Because it's funny, you'll see the headline and you'll click on it, and that's not the headline of the news story. It's something that's like a lot of times they bury the lead. It's kind of the terminology in journalism, meaning like the real story is like in the middle of, you have to read all the way down the article to figure out where he got that headline from, which is actually the most interesting thing. So yeah, it's really a good idea to find ideas for subject lines, which are basically headlines in an email. The from line is really important for backends. We talked about last week, the from line really doesn't, we don't control that when we go on to the outside for customer acquisition. It really doesn't mean anything anyways for somebody on like survival life to get an email from James Altucher. On the back end though, for someone to get an email from James Altucher versus the Altucher report, that can have a significant improvement on response. So when you want to actually change your from line, you need to communicate that to the marketing team. You can't just rely on them to come up with that. Because they're just going to default to whatever the normal from line is for that list. So if you want to have it from somebody different, what I usually do is I put like underneath, I have the subject line, the mobile subject line, the SSL, and then below that I'll put like from all in caps and make it red and bold so they know to change the from to the from line I want. Authority, that kind of ties back to the from line, but who's it from? Who's it about? Images, we talked about that on Monday too. The more bizarre and weird, the better. And if you can find something better than stock images, even better yet. Go ahead.
I work with Zach, so he's really good about like doing selfies. So you can't have Apple in there, but you can have him go to the Apple Store and take a selfie.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yep. Yeah, the more you can generate yourself, the more creative you get on that. I mean,
so he can go to Apple.
Yeah.
And have Apple shit in the background. Kind of, or you can just tell it's an Apple.
Yeah,
store.
you probably couldn't have it like in front of the logo pointing at it or something, right? It's just sort of like plausible deniability, I'm sure.
Yeah, hey, it's got my new iPhone.
Oh yeah, little shit like that.
Yeah. I think voyeurism is really kind of a huge a key thing people are interested in. Voyeurism meaning like seeing things that you're not supposed to see. Like you can think as much in the gutter as you like about that.
So Nick's from Vegas, right? Nick's from Las Vegas. And he said they've got this restaurant, yeah, and in the bathroom there's like this little peephole thing. So it's like peephole to the women's bathroom. And when you open it, there's like a video camera from the other side, and they take pictures of your face. And it's in the bar, so it's like flashing police lights. And hey, so and so looked at the peephole.
Voyeurism is huge in lip notes, huge. And Ryan will show you some examples in a second. It's a very powerful piece of curiosity.
So with 4 words can work really well, especially if you're forwarding. You should only use it selectively. So if you have a lip that has like 25% or better click-through rate and over 200,000 back-end sales, or over 400 orders on the front end, you should probably flag that for the publisher and marketing team and say, we should forward that again. And the way you do that is it should look just like you forwarded it like an Outlook. Like it came from one person and should say, hey, I just saw this. You should take a look at it below. I think people mess this up a lot because they try to make it, they write another lift note on top of it, which is not really the point of it. The point of it should look like I've had it town before, like make it in blue font, like in Garmin instead of whatever the other one is. So it looks like someone literally went in their Outlook and forwarded the message from before.
Ryan's got an example of this later on, but this is something we do mess up all the time. So this is the easiest thing you can do to make more money once your promo is working and once you have an internal lift note that has received 25% plus clicks or 200K on the back end or 400 orders on the front end. So all you do, and this should already be baked into the Agora Financial system. Like there should be a marketing manager or there should be a publisher looking at these numbers. But when you hit those targets in a lift note, just forward it as fast as possible to the same file with that quick little note on top. And like Ryan said, you don't write a whole new lift note. All you're doing is getting that lift note in front of them again that you just know generated a huge amount of orders or a huge amount of money, and getting them to click on that same thing again. So the forward is literally like, hey, Joe here, did you see the message below? Click here or read below. That's it. And then you forward the email that you just sent them that made all the money.
I think what you're doing is you're adding a layer of social proof. People tend to forward emails that they think you'll like, as we're seeing. It's almost like validating it a second time. That's why I had to make it look more authentic. Like Joe literally forwarded it from his Outlook. It's the best way to do it. So like, you know, different blue font, maybe smaller font, you know, like.
Put that little thing in the bottom of the iPhone.
Yep. Yeah, you could do something like that.
Something that'd be really cool too.
Yeah.
Right?
You can change
Make
your
it-
from line to that too.
Mhm.
You know, sent from Zach Scheit's iPhone.
Forwarded from
What'd you say?
my iPhone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you misspell some stuff, don't capitalize some stuff. That's the other thing with lift notes, right? Context is a lot. So if you're sending it from an Apple iPhone, you may not want to make it perfect grammar with long sentences, right? If you're saying sent from Zach Scheit's iPhone or whatever it might be, in the from line, you probably want to make it lower case, and you might want to misspell a word, and then you could have the signature line afterwards say, hey, Zach, P.S., you know, I sent this from my iPhone, so disregard any typos, right? So you can do that.
I have a question.
Yes.
For our Trump bonus checks promo, Braddock wrote a lift that got like 39% click-through rate and has like 175 orders, which is well short of like 400 orders, you know? But that click-through rate, though.
It'll get forward again. Like
You should forward it again.
Yeah, that
You
one
should forward it again.
I should have said in the context of that. That's like something like the daily reckoning of the 5.
Yeah,
I
you're
think that's
sending
on
it
a smaller
to
list.
that list. I think you guys sent to was 7-figure formula, right?
Actually,
Yeah, two
it
things.
might have been a paid list.
It
might have
was.
been- okay.
So two things there. You got to hire the normal click-through rate. You sent it to a paid file. Still great, right?
Yeah, I went to another file. I think it did do like right at 20 or 19.
Yeah, so it'll do lower when you send it to a file that's filled with less paid buyers. But two, because it's a paid file, it's much lower in list size. So these numbers, like Ryan's saying, 200K and 400 orders is really the 5-minute forecast. You're just looking for an outlier, right? Those two numbers are outliers for the 5-minute forecast. If you look back through 7-figure formula and said, what have we sent in that in the past? I guarantee that 175 orders is a lot. It's a lot. It's an outlier. That thing should be sent again. If it hasn't already, it should be sent again immediately in a forward.
Deadlines and scarcity. That's what gets people to click on emails. I'm going to say a big mistake I see. I just saw it actually with Altiture this weekend for a deadline push. I think it's a really bad idea to put any kind of deadline language in the subject line of a deadline email. They're just telling people are enough lists now that to say closing in 12 hours,
Terrible.
don't do that.
It'll be the worst opened email of the
Because
month.
then they know exactly what you're doing there. Like I think, in the body of the lift note itself, if it is a deadline, really push that. Push the scarcity deadline. Do not broadcast and tip your hand in the subject line, because nobody's going to open it up because nobody wants to be pressured by that kind of. They already know it's marketing.
Yeah, you can hint at that and tease at that and get at the same thing with much more creativity, which is just to put a subject line that says something like goodbye, right? You don't really know what that means. If James Altucher is writing you something, he says goodbye. That's much different than if James Altucher is writing to you and saying, hurry, in title case, this ends in 12 hours. You kind of know you're about to be sold. But with goodbye, done, especially in lowercase in a subject line, there's a lot more curiosity there. Or this is it, or I'm leaving, something like that, right? So you can get at the urgency and scarcity without saying, this ends in 4 hours. Last chance you'll ever see this message, Do something a little bit more creative. Just say, this is the end of you and I together. That's much different. It gets the same scarcity, urgency, curiosity.
I just have this probably a stupid idea, but why don't we do not promotion, it's called promotions, but I mean like sale on our products. So just regardless of having or not having a promotion, why don't we just send like an email every quarter or something that we're having 25% off?
Too logical. That's why. Yeah, so it's not, like we talk about people get hooked on emotion and then justify with logic, which is different than a consumer good, right? In our promos, if you can't, because save 25% isn't emotional enough to hook them, because we tried before, we made that mistake. Saving 25% could come up towards the close because that's where they're justifying through logic, but it's too logical of a sale.
Yeah.
There's no inherent
They're not,
demand
like,
for our
engaged.
product.
Yeah, no one, again, if people are waking up and saying, you know what I really want is that currency wars alert from James Rickards. And then you hit them with, hey, 25% off. They're like, great, I'll buy.
Yeah.
Right? But they're not thinking that. So you got to be massively disruptive from an emotional side. And then you could justify.
I mean, part of it too is in the emails. We'll get to this in a second. Like, really, the purpose of the email is just to sell a click, just to get them curious, interested. That's it, warmed up. It's not to close a deal or anything like that. So you're not even making an offer other than the offer is you should click.
The only time that'll work is in renewals. That's the only time, because then they're hyper aware of the product.
Yes.
They've already bought the product. They're generally aware of the price that they paid, generally. Because coming back to what Manny said, you listen to these customers on the phone sometimes, sometimes they don't even know what they're buying. Sometimes they don't know what price they paid for it. No, you paid $2,000. No, I didn't. I think I paid $3,000. No, you didn't pay that. That's the only time it might be able to work, is that they're hyper aware of that. You could say $1,000 off, right? Which is probably still a better way to do it. But anyway, yeah, it's typically from a renewal side. If it's going to work, it'll work there.
Just wondering.
Another factor gets people to open in and click is, I call it quirky language or power words, might be another way to look at it. I'm trying to think of the example. Manny, it was when we had the ping pong tournament and you were working on a lift and it ended up working. Do you remember we did this, like you said, like start off like explosion or something that was like a little bit violently boom. Yeah, he changed it from originally his, and that's hard to say whether that made, because we didn't test it or anything, but like originally his thing was like, what was it? Crypto's going to explode or something? Set to explode, which is a little bit cliched in our business. People say explode all the time. So he changed it to violently boom, which is kind of quirky and weird. And so you kind of collect and just look for those kind of weird word combinations, because we're trying to do a pattern interrupt. And my wife has, drives me nuts, like 6,000 unread emails in her inbox. I tell her just, hit all delete and take care of that problem in 2 seconds. But that's who we're competing amongst. Okay, it's like people have emails from their grandparent, they have emails from Amazon.com. Somehow you gotta like shake it up, and they have emails from us that we're competing against ourselves. So someone else has explode, this tiny cryptocurrency is going to explode, versus violently boom. I mean, which one's more interesting? Fun. People like to click on emails for fun. Guessing games, quizzes. I'll show some examples in a minute of some of those. But you look on like, it's not as common now, but my grandparents, God bless them, used to forward me the dumbest shit all the time. I don't know if people still do that or not, but like 100 weird facts about something or other or whatever. And like people like email. They use email for fun. They use it for entertainment. So that's something we can leverage as well. Micro stories, meaning little stories in the email, which a good email probably always has that, which again, like remember, a good story has setup, plot, punchline. So like a micro story might be like, I couldn't believe when I saw this email from James Altucher, ... That's the setup, right? And then the plot of whatever I saw, click here now to see what I just saw. You see how that's like a little mini story. But it's
The important point,
beginning, middle, and end.
don't tell them the punchline in the lift note. That's the important point. You give them the setup, you give them the plot, tell them to click to get the punchline. If you give them the punchline, they're not going to click.
Social proof is always good. Controversy. People like controversy. Again, you don't even have to tell them the controversy. You can just tell them that this is controversial. Click to see it. And Joe's kind of reinforced what Joe just said, like blind subject lines, links, keep things, add a little mystery.
So when I'm pretty confident now that if I sit down to write a lift, my guess is 80+% of the time I'll write something that gets north of a 20% clicking lift note. And it took me a long time to figure out how to do that. And the single thing that I do when I sit down to write a lift note is I say, what can I do radically different that the subscriber's never seen from a formatting side? So let's forget about the words for a second. That's one of the first questions I ask myself. What can I do radically different from a formatting side that will disrupt the person's day? So coming back to what Ryan mentioned earlier, I think we've said this multiple times in here. You know, we as human beings now in the world of crazy digital advertising, we see something like 4,000 ads a day between radio ads and billboards and TV ads and all the banners that follow us around the internet and all the retargeting and all the emails that we get. Now I'm getting tons of spam right on my cell phone with text messaging. So we see something like 4,000 ads. So forget the words for a second. What can you do visually to disrupt that person's day? Meaning, you can change the from line like we talked about. You could do some weird ass character in the subject line. And then when they open that thing, you know, what can you do visually different there? If they see it as the same old thing that they're used to getting in their email box, they are going to dismiss it. So just think about that too. That's where I always start. And then I say, if I can figure that out, it's going to make everything that I write much easier. Because now if I found out a way to disrupt their day from a formatting side, anything that I write, the formatting, because it's disruptive, is going to improve.
Can you give us a couple recent examples?
I'll give you an example, some like real simple one. Like, if everybody has kind of normal looking paragraphs and yours are kind of blocky and chunky, that's going to look a little different, right? Or if they're just one lines. So like something as simple as like just the actual paragraph structure of your copy can be enough to have a pattern interrupt.
Here's another example. You guys are on all the lists that we sent, or we have, right? Every list gets sent in an email template. Why? Because somebody 12 years ago said, oh, we need to create a brand for, I don't know, let's pick a pub. We'll pick one because you asked. Lifetime income report. Mm-hmm. Lifetime income report, every time we send a lifetime income report email, it comes in this template. It's got a logo up top, and it's got all this shit about you can unsubscribe here, and it's got a specific color scheme. When I send a lift note, I'm just going to drop the template. I don't want the template. You're not going to be able to do it every time, right? But one of the things you can do to disrupt is just drop the goddamn template. Drop the template, and let's send an email like it looks like it's coming from Zach. Like it's coming from Zach's personal computer. It doesn't need to be sent in an email template. You still need to have all the canned spam stuff at the bottom, right? So hidden at the very bottom needs to be, oh yeah, you can unsubscribe. Like that needs to stay there. It doesn't need to stay there in that template. So what would happen if you wrote an email to the lifetime income report file, you drop the template, make it look like it came actually from Zach, and you change the font to blue, or you change it to lime green. You know, I'm making that up. That's probably terrible. You know, but in some type of color thing that is just strange and different.
Wingdings.
So I'm going to tell you guys an idea, and it's the world's worst idea, but I did have this idea. I still think it could work, even though it is a terrible idea. I wanted to create a report. You guys know what Wingdings is? Mm-hmm. You know, the font? Yes. I wanted to write a report in like Times New Roman, right? Then I wanted to change that report to Wingdings. Then I wanted to save it, and I wanted to tell you that I'm giving you a report that's so top secret that I need to give you a decoder on how to read this crazy shit. And then I was going to send you a Wingding and say, you know, tomorrow I'm going to send you an email to tell you how to decode this. And all I was going to tell you was how to highlight it and change the Wingdings back to Time New Roman. So I'm going to send you the secret decoder for this special report. And I think it could work for like a Rickards because it worked for the CIA. I'm going to send you the Enigma report. You know, that's all secretly coded in Wingdings and then show you how to reverse. Anyway, I found out it couldn't work because every time I try to highlight Wingdings and change it back to New Roman after I save the file, it doesn't work. So if anyone knows how to make this work, it changes to like gobbledygook.
Yeah, probably doesn't.
Yeah.
You know, that's funny because we have an idea about that as well. So I wonder if we can get that to work.
Anyway, coming back to it, that's one of the ways that you can change the formatting, right? So I look at that and I say, why? I question. You got to question the default. Everything you do, question the default as a copywriter. So when you sit there and you write an email, every other copywriter in the entire world, pretty much, is not going to change, is not going to drop the email template. Why? Because somebody who sends emails is going to tell you that that's the way it has to be. They're going to say, well, we just send everything in a template. Anytime that someone says to me, that's just not the way we do things, is when I know I have a good idea.
Unless it's order forms.
Yeah. Order forms, we just fuck up too much for it to be. But I'm sure there's a better way to do order forms. Although you caught me, that's a good one. Anyway, if that's just not the way we do things, right? Like, question that and say, great, that's just not the way we do things. We always send in an email template. I don't want to send an email template. I want to test it. Let's test it, right? At the end of the day, you can always get your test, even on order forms.
It'd be interesting to
See
see
if we
what
can beat our
customers,
order forms. Let's test it.
it'd be interesting to see what customer service gets as far as email from our real customers. So I bet you there's people that like have script font that's like purple. That's how people use email. I mean, the more authentic you can make like a real person send it.
Yep.
That's the key, I think.
So that's what I sit down and I think, how can I disrupt someone's day within 5 seconds and make it look different than anything else that they've already at any point have gotten. And then the words for me always come second, because again, depending on what I want to be disruptive about the design and the look of it, will change what I write. So if I'm writing in an email template, that's going to change the way I write, much different than if I've dropped the email template and I'm writing in some weird ass format.
Have you ever tried you ever read like Instagram posts, how they leave the comments in there?
Mm-hmm.
You ever try something like that and at the bottom, like circle, like, oh my God, check this thing.
No, we should though. I've seen a lot of other people do it.
Yeah.
So we should.
A little handy system when you write short copy. Joe invented this, the DIC system, D-I-C
Short
system. We could figure out a K where we put that in there, but it's real simple. It's disrupt, meaning get people's attention, give them an itch that they want to scratch. Okay, so like teasing them, curiosity, open loops. But don't really scratch it because you want to push them to a click. And of course, your email should have, every lift note should have, Rob Reddick. Click here now. Awesome. So where to get ideas? Robert Collier in his book, Robert Collier Letter Book, has that famous quote that applies to all copywriting. But you want to get in the conversation that they already have occurring in their head. Spend an hour on Iris every day, see what other stuff went out and how it worked or didn't work. Get on as many lists as you can. Trick on doing that would be to go to the external send part of Iris and see what lists we're renting, and then get yourself somehow on those lists.
Okay, so stop here for a second. Coming back to number one. Again, when I would sit down to write a lift note, that's one of the ones that I would start to spend a lot of time on, is trying to figure out what is that conversation that's going on in that reader's mind and how can I tell a different story. So one of the things that I would do almost every day is just go to the drudge, see what's at the top of the drudge. I know we've mentioned this a couple times in Copy Camp, but it's worth repeating. And I'd say, it could, if I'm writing a lift note for book of income, could I bend whatever's happening top of mind on the drudge report back into book of income? Some of the times that answer is going to be no, but a lot of the times if you get creative, that answer could be yes.
So it's a couple of interesting quirky words you can pull right out of here, right? Roller coaster. That's kind of a weird word, right? You can put that as a subject line. Suburban discontent. So this, you look for like keywords too, because drudge is kind of a master of kind of pulling out that quirky language to get someone's attention.
So I had a question about this. I really want to do what you just said. I really want to do like media, because there's only so many ways I can say this 70-cent crypto is set to explode, violently boom. And it's like, I don't even know what else to say it's going to do. But has anyone ever done like a Ben Settle thing where like his emails are just long, and you got to have that relationship, I feel like, to get someone to commit to read something that long.
So the Ben Settle thing, that's sort of what the people that write our e-letters are supposed to be doing. So it's a little bit different than a lift note, which is a little more scalable. So you can take Ben's email and just put them all over the internet by buying media for them, because it won't work out of the context. So I guess one thing we don't really talk about in this particular session is that there's another way of getting traffic, which are all the editorial mentions and like the PSs on the bottom of the e-letters that they're getting every day. So that's where they're getting the daily relationship. They don't write them like Ben Settle. Probably they did a little more of that, probably be a good thing, but that's not really where, I don't know, like it'd be a lot of work for one copywriter to do that. I don't know if the return will really justify it.
Well, here's where it's slightly different too. When you click on that link with Ben, where does it go?
It goes to stuff, I email with player email thing.
Yeah, but like where specifically will it go?
Sales pitch.
Most of the time it'll go to an order form for him. Most of the time. So for him, his email is almost the promotion. So he almost is forced to write longer ones, right? So for us, if you've already done the work for the promotion, this job is a little bit different than the one Ben's doing. Because Ben's trying to sell you much more deeply in the email because he's linking you to an order form. And there might be times that he writes full-length sales promotions. I just don't see them too often, at least not on the list that I'm on.
Keep a swipe file of emails. I have one that goes back to like 2013. Where every time I see an interesting email, I put it in this folder in my Outlook. You should be keeping a swipe file of promotions, but look back and like sometimes things go in waves too. I might look back and see what people are doing in 2013 and find an idea I could bring up now and it'll be brand new. So keep a swipe file. Keep lists of ideas, just similar to what you're doing for promo ideas. Read the promo. Kind of sad to say that, but if you're writing it, even if it's your own, read it again. Try to find one powerful idea you can extract out of it. Brett.
So I would be interested to know how you guys are keeping up with the competition and the market, because like last time I told you, I struggled to not read every single word of a book. So it's the same thing with the email. So I want to read I want to read the whole email. So I'm wondering if you subscribe to all those new.
I don't read them all. I mean, if it doesn't get my attention, then it probably. I mean, because I'm looking at it a very specific way too. I mean, I'm probably even more critical than an average person. So don't read it all because we know that 90% of them aren't going to work or didn't work.
Yeah.
I'm looking at Ben's stuff right now. He does have a landing page. I wouldn't call it a promo like we do. It's kind of like a long order form. That's kind of like what he does.
This kind of
doesn't change. The big ideas don't change, right? So we have constantly changing big ideas that you got to get them to. So
this kind of gets these next couple kind of get to your point, Kyle. I mean, they create new hooks. Try to find like loose connections to your big idea, and it's kind of hard to explain. It's a little abstract, but like if you think of like your big idea of your promo, 70-cent cryptocurrency. What's something that's a little bit over from that? What's something that's a little bit over from that? You know what I mean? Like what's driving that currency? I don't remember that particular promo, but like
IBM's gonna have a big announcement.
So like something like that, right? It's a little bit farther over, and just it just gets more and more indirect. Is another way to look at it. Scott kind of talked about that. Like you're trying to find things like originally you're just testing the most direct thing. Just get more and more indirect. Look through like all your subheads. There's probably something in there. It could be like one mysterious chart explains it all, right? Explains the entire crypto business. That's like such a tiny part of your promo, but it still might be enough to be, if you could build enough mystery and curiosity enough to get a click.
Yeah, I think one of the things like that I just had to pop in my head right now, what's one removed? Like if IBM's the thing driving it, what's one removed from that? And I had like this idea, the secret boardroom meeting, they're planning the date. It could be any second now. Click here now. And I'm just worried that they'll get there and they'll say, "Oh, crypto," and they'll bounce. And then
I can't control that part.
Yeah.
The customer's going to decide whether or not crypto is still interesting to them or not.
Okay.
Now, if you do that effectively, I'll show an example in a minute. And say you get like 40% click-through rate on this boardroom thing. The boardroom meeting coming up is going to change everything, entire financial markets, whatever. And you're just kind of transfer stationing the IBM thing. If that works, that might be a re-lead for your promotion. So you could take that same copy, and I'll show an example in a minute, and put that in, and then use that same lift, so that way we can congruent. And
so that way I keep the click-through rate and then boost conversions by making.
But just not really a way to get around. It's going to fatigue, and you're going to have to get more and more indirect. That's just how it goes. And at the end of the day, your promotion is going to have kind of it's going to die at some point. So, but the longer it lives, the more money it makes. So, but at some point, its fate is sealed. It's not going to go forever. So yeah, indirect, direct is another way to look at it. It's better to start with direct in the beginning. But another way to think of it too is like, how many different ways can you go away from the idea and still have some sort of loose connection to it? That's where you got to read the news, right? So it's like China is doing tariffs and the trade war, how does that impact crypto? How does that impact your promotion? I had no idea. But that might give you direction to explore to find an idea, because everyone's talking about right now based on the dirt report. Like the trade war you haven't heard of, and it's about cryptos or something. That's probably terrible. Study the list that's going out on. Might be some clues there. News cycle, we just talked about that. Look up past stuff to see what worked and didn't work on Iris. A lot of this is like just being aware of what the hell is going on. I mean, to be honest, right? Being aware of what's happening in the world, being aware of what's happening in our business, being aware of what's happening on our lists. So you got to read our stuff every day. You got to look at Iris every day.
Speaking of study the list, how does that look like from a practical standpoint? Like if I just open Iris and see it went to this list, how do I investigate like the right way?
Well, I mean, you would look at it and just kind of think about it, right? Like if it was writing it for James Altucher and it's going to Jim Rickards' list, well, I don't really know James Altucher as much. So you wouldn't want it to be as James Altucher heavy. It could be still from James, but it's not going to have the same impact if it's going to Jim Rickards' list. So you might even think like, how can I get Jim Rickards to actually endorse this somehow, use his name? Things like that. I mean, that's like kind of two extreme examples, but like if you look at two different paid lists and it's different people and you're cross-marketing on them, then that's going to really impact how you write it. If it's going to like a front-end one you're testing to the 5-minute forecast or kind of a one that we want to hopefully scale up and go to the outside world, same thing. You don't want to write it like the same way you would for the paid file, because it's not going to have the same effect. You know what I mean? You probably want to have one that doesn't have an assumption that the person knows who's talking.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second. If anyone in Agora Financial asks you to write a lift note and does not tell you what file it's going to and when it's going, don't write the lift note. Who did I talk to about that earlier? Was it you, Jimmy?
It was me, right?
Yeah, it's a massive mistake. So there are well-meaning marketers in our company that will be like, I need 5 lift notes for your promotion. Yeah, the next 5 minutes. Yeah. So number one, the first question you should ask them is, where's it going and when is it going? Because if you can't answer those questions, you can't write a lift note. You can write a space ad, right? Because a space ad can go almost anywhere because it's not leading the relationship with the customer. It's being inserted into a larger conversation that an editor is having with that person that day. You cannot write an effective lift note unless you know where it's going and when it's going. Because here's where our business gets fucked up. If Dave Gonigan, for the 5-minute forecast, writes today's 5-minute forecast about how dangerous what Trump is doing in the trade wars are, what his policies, how dangerous these policies are, then if you as a lift note writer don't know where your lift note's going and you write a lift note that says Trump's rah Trump, he screwed it to China, right? And then you get into a promo that's about Rickards Project Prophecy Trade Wars, and a marketing manager picks that up and runs it to the 5-minute forecast in Dave's name 3 hours after he just wrote an anti-Trump trade war email. That doesn't make any sense. That's where relationships break in our business. However, if you know it's going to the 5-minute forecast and you know it's going today, then you read today's 5-minute forecast and you're like, Dave poo-pooed the trade war thing. I'm going to come on top of this in Dave's voice and say, earlier today I poo-pooed the trade war thing. Well, there's a story that I haven't told you about how to actually make money from this. So click here. So that lift note is radically different when you know where it's going and when it's going. So if anyone asks you to write lift notes, and they don't tell you those things, tell them you're not going to do it. You can't do it. You cannot do it effectively.
But isn't the idea of a lift note, because I've been in lift note hell this week, isn't the idea of a lift note to become a scalable lift note?
If it's on the front end.
Okay.
Yeah, if it's on the front end. And then the front end, anything goes almost because there's no relationship, right?
I see. So you're specifically talking, that makes a lot
I'm
of sense.
talking internal files.
Okay.
If you do not know where that is going, don't write it. Like, you're going to do the whole thing a disservice. And this is where our readers will write back to us if we do this poorly and say, what is this? Like, I don't understand what this is, right? Because Dave just said something completely contradictory, and this thing went out in Dave's voice 2 hours later. and doesn't make any sense. So yeah, internally, if they do not tell you where it's going and when it's going, and when is important too. You write an email today about China tariffs, and they don't run it for 2.5 weeks after China tariffs have fallen out of the news cycle. That's not going to be effective either. So get them to tell you when it's going and where it's going. And if they can't do that, then you don't write that lift. Just don't write it.
I mean, it's the same thing
Used
for the
to
front
write.
end, right? Like, really, what they're trying to do is, hopefully, is to scale your promotion. So that's why you're doing it, right? So the back end is to make as much money as possible.
And again, I'm not saying that these are bad people, right? These are well-meaning people that are doing what they believe to be their job because someone else told them that this is how you do this particular job. You guys are the only ones in our entire business that go through a 2-month camp like this. Like, you get indoctrinated in a way that most people don't. So you get some, being nice here, how can I say this nicely? You get somebody who is in like some mid-level marketing position,
Not as educated.
who shows up, who has 15 people telling them this is just how you ask copywriters for lift notes. They ask you for lift notes, and now you're forced to write bad lift notes because you're writing them to blind files you don't know when and where. So if you ever sit down to write a lift note and you don't know when it's going and where it's going, don't write the lift note. That's super important, because you should study what just happened to that file and build upon that relationship in that file. So what I would do if I got assigned a lift note again and they say, hey, it's going to Zach Scheidt's list and it's going to endorse his income on demand and we're going to send it to lifetime income report and we're going to send it tomorrow, then I'd probably sit there and read the past 4 or 5 Zach alerts that he sent to lifetime income report. I'm sorry? Yeah. And so I'd study what was sent to that file. And then again, I'd sit there and I'd say, what can I do visually to disrupt someone's day? And what can I do to build upon the conversation that's already being had to that particular customer? If I can answer those 2 things, the ability to write a 20% plus clicking lift note is much higher in my favor.
Can I tell you that? I had a situation where I had a good idea for a strong dollar, right? And that wasn't talking about a strong dollar, just a weak dollar. So I guess you need to know the Google, make sure they don't, they're full wherever you're writing about.
Exactly.
I mean, something that you can handle too, where the guru is saying, like, I might have different opinions, but I think this is still worthy of consideration, right? That's kind of a way of like maintaining that relationship and being like, I don't 100% agree with Zach, but this is a really interesting idea. It's worth checking out. That wouldn't be a copy, but you know what I mean? That's the way of framing it in a way that's still keeping that relationship intact.
What if we, so the formula is traffic plus converting copy equals boom. What if because we just talked about like the way they're indoctrinated, but if you look at the formula, they're 50% of it and they're the first thing. So
You can flip it. Doesn't matter.
It's just like I'm trying to make a dramatic point. Yeah. But so the thing is, yeah, you just ruined it. But yeah, you see obviously how important it is that it would be the very first word of this formula, and it's 50% of what we need. How do we get, like, maybe we should put a day together for all of us to sit down and hash out, like, where are these gaps? Like, this is very important to our business. What is your process? Brandon Edwards versus Megan Greer versus, and like maybe they do things that they could learn something. We're all in a conference together on this, but
So stay tuned, because one of the things I'm working with Katie on is to do a traffic camp. Just like, because it is, every day that goes by, it's more and more and more important. And it becomes maybe further in the front side of that equation, right? So Katie is working on putting together, you guys are going to be the first ones to know this, it's super secret, is a traffic camp. Because one of the big, and this is going to get a little tangential.
You gotta cut this out.
Yeah, cut this out. One of the big bottlenecks to our business right now is we just can't get enough traffic because our business has become so big. And you can't find a lot of really good media buyers out there because they don't exist out there anymore, because all of them have found homes in companies like ours, or they've run their own products. So we wanted to try a camp that would take somebody that had general marketing knowledge and make them a badass traffic driver / media buyer within a month, just like the camp that we're going through. So we are going to have a traffic / media buyer camp coming up very shortly that would retrain all the people internally, build upon what they already know, and then onboard maybe 5 or 10 or 15 new media buyers and try to get them up to speed quickly, so that we could scale a whole lot of promotions at the same time.
and it would be really good, like we did with legal. You'd have us all in the same room.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, you guys, at the point that we determine when that thing's going to be, I think it'll probably be, my guess is like August-ish. That's my guess. because we still have to onboard a lot of new media buyers for that to happen too. We should retrain our other people as soon as possible or build upon what they've done.
Yeah.
But yeah, stay tuned. That's going to happen.
A couple other places to get ideas. Follow the editor's travels. That's always a fun thing. Like Jim Rickards, if he's in Mexico at the Maya temples, just ask him to like take a selfie. He's really good at doing that. Probably other editors are going interesting places. Maybe not even that interesting, but could be interesting. You know, they take a selfie at the airport if they're going somewhere. How do you know that? Well, you got to communicate with them and ask them. Okay, that's why it's good to have relationships with these people so you can find out where they are in the world. Kind of related to that too as well as media appearances. So like what James Altucher was on CNBC talking about the crypto boom a couple months ago. I really leveraged that a lot in the Lyft notes. So I was able to take a screenshot him on TV and said, like, I was just on TV. Here's some of the things I said, but what I didn't say, click here to find out. So again, how did I know that? Because I was staying in very close contact with James, and he told me he was going to be on CNBC the week before, so I was actually writing. It's very powerful ways. This is kind of a lot of implied authority and social proof if someone's on TV. Last one's kind of a trick for back end if you're really running out of ideas is see what current recommendations are actually in the editorial and talk about those in the Lyft note, even though it's not going to be in the copy, with the sense that they're going to eventually find that by making the purchase. So I'll give an example on that. When the impact system was really hot, I did that a lot where I'd be like, this is Jim Rickards. I just identified a huge opportunity to make money in the yin. Click here to find out. I think it should be 10 times your money. Click here to find out how to discover my research or something like that, right? And like nothing in my promo had anything about the current recommendations, but it was something that was happening in the product, you know, especially if I could tie it to something happening in the world. So actually read the editorial is a good idea as well.
And again, you can't do that unless you know where it's going.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Hey, write me a Lyft note. Okay. How can you study where it's going? Or how can you study what's been done if you don't know what's going?
All right, a few other ways to boost your response. Just remember, and I'll say it over and over, do not try to close the sale in your email. Your only job is to sell them a click. That's it. We talked about this in the past before, like Lowenstein's information gap theory, something called the Zeigarnik effect, open loops, teases. People that have gaps in information are very curious and want to close the gap on it. So leverage that as much as possible. Rule of one, your email should be about one thing, not two things, not five things.
And not a summary of the promotion.
Yeah, not a summary of the promotion.
You know, let's talk about that for 30 seconds because I think we're conditioned from a very young age to write book reports because that's what school has taught us how to do. And the first thing that most people do when they sit down and they write Lyft notes is they try to write a book report of the promo. So they take it and they say, hey, I'm gonna regurgitate the headline and lead. I'm gonna talk about a couple proof points. I'm gonna talk how urgent this offer is. I'm gonna tell them that they can get a 50% discount when they buy today. And then I'm gonna tell them to click here for the info, right? So when you summarize a promotion like that, you just steal the entire thunder of the promotion. But you'd be surprised, like this is probably pretty elementary to you guys at this point, but be surprised about how many new copywriters we do business with. And we say, okay, go write a Lyft note and it's going to Zach's file and it's going tomorrow. And they just summarize the whole thing because that's what we've been conditioned to do as young human beings in the schooling system is to write book reports. So just make sure you pick one item in your promotion and tease that one item. Don't summarize. And that one item could be the scarcity of the offer or the deadline that's coming up. That could be that. So you can tease the scarcity, tease the offer. It's not like you would never have to mention the offer, but just don't write a book report on the whole thing. Because then there's no reason to click. There's no curiosity. There's no voyeurism.
Validate and fascinate. Don't try to convince or explain why they should do it. Simple language, low FK scores, 7 or less. I would, if you want a little trick, I would put your FK score in the document that you're doing your Lyft notes in. So if it's a Word or Google Docs, whatever, subject line, SSL, from line, and then write down your FK score. It's just a way to remember, check it. Something really easy to check.
Same thing in your first draft of your promos. If you remember when we talked about those, I'd put your FK score in the first draft of your promo.
That's been really helpful. So I've written something out and I know I'm gonna rewrite it. So instead of just rewriting it, I'll just run it through the FK score thing and rewrite it there. It's so much easier.
I mean, if you look at like the top lifts, I bet you the FK score is like 5 with like 5th grade level, maybe even 4. I mean, that's just people like simplicity, and they don't want to be confused. They definitely don't want to be confused in their email, because if they're confused in their email, they're just going to delete it. Not going to bother with it even for a second. Another trick is writing by subtraction. So to Joe was talking about how you don't want to summarize the entire promotion in the lift note. Well, if you have direct pieces of copy, you might just pull out things out of them and make them more blind. So as opposed to say like this 70-cent crypto, which they've seen a zillion times, you could say this mysterious investment. You can make that a hyperlink. So you pull that out. Now it's a little bit of a mystery. So it's like writing by subtraction. Look at the real direct things maybe they are going to see and dismiss, and just delete them out or put something blind in there to get them actually curious to find out about it again. The same thing works the other direction too. I call it writing by addition. Look for kind of vague sentences or paragraphs. Like what are little things you could put in there to make them a little more ultra specific? You know, if it's just about cryptos in general, well, you could say, well, this crypto in parentheses that you can buy for less than you can buy a Big Mac sandwich, etc. You know what I mean? Like that's another way of making it more specific versus just plain and vanilla, which you don't want. Inject the promise of real-time news updates, especially in the back end of things are happening. So if your promotion has any connection to like trade wars or China, you could say like, click here for an immediate update on that, even though it's not really real-time news or promotion is. In a way, it kind of is. If they haven't seen it yet, it's definitely a different way of looking at it. You want to promise them a minimal investment of time or money. So again, if it's cheap 70-cent crypto, that's good to play up. If it's going to only take them 2 minutes to get the gist of it, I've used that before. Just watch the first 2 minutes of this video, this 60-minute video. I'm not going to tell them the 60-minute part because no one wants to watch a 60-minute video. At least they don't think they do. But 2 minutes, yeah, I can do that, right?
Or that Obama one where it was like, you won't believe what happens at minute 2:27
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah, that's a real clever thing too. Controversy. Link location, number of links. This is one of those things where people have very definite opinions, which to tie back to something Joe said earlier, it's not really true. So people all have a link on their first sentence. Maybe you shouldn't have a link in your first sentence. Typically in the past, I'll put 3 links in there. I'll put 1 link in the first sentence, 1 kind of passive hyperlink in the middle, and then a very powerful push, click here now for my last sentence as a hyperlink. Problem is, if everyone else starts copying me, then what's that do? It kind of weakens the whole thing. So maybe I don't want to do that. Maybe I just want to have a lot of copy and only have 1 click here now at the bottom so people actually have to read the copy. Maybe I want to have like 6 links and have like a link in every paragraph. I don't know. There's probably different ways of doing it, but the idea of a pattern interrupt is just to make it look different. Someone have a question?
If you were making an entire lift note,
No. Maybe.
Sounds like something we should try.
right?
Enemies, always good, especially if you can get a photo of them. Just tell them the reason why you're sending this email. That's something other than we want to make money. It's probably good. I was just on TV. I was just watching the news. Had to give you this update. And the last thing is just kind of another way to kind of make it look different. Just the design of it is using unusual punctuation or typographical emphasis. So using bold, using all cap letters, using weirdo dashes or whatever, brackets. Try those out.
I have 3 questions that you should ask yourself before you write a lift note, or as you write a lift note, let's say. And I almost guarantee that if you are able to answer all 3 of these, then your shot at writing a 20% lift note is very, very, very high. And I've told you 2 of them already, so I'm just going to recap those. Number 1 is, what can I do to make this look different? That could be what Sean just said, is that you hyperlink the whole damn thing. Every word in there is going to be a hyperlink to your promotion. It could be, what I mentioned earlier, is that you drop the email template. So that's the first question I always ask myself. Number 2, and I've just told you about this, which is, when is this being sent and to what list? And the third, and here's the big one, that I think you'll know you're onto something. And I'm going to offer some context about this. But the third is, will this make someone in our office uncomfortable? And here's what I mean by that. I don't mean from an HR side. So I want to be very clear about that, right? I don't mean that this is something that's going to make someone want to run to HR about and say, this person just creeped me out. That's not the uncomfortable that you're looking for. I mean that someone is going to tell you that that's just not the way we do things. And I said that earlier. That's what I mean. So again, in context of this, if you tell someone, I'm writing this and I don't want it sent in the email template, someone in the office is either going to A, send it in the email template in a way that you just told them not to do, because it's outside of the norm and they're not going to come back to you. So they're just going to send it and you're going to see it the next day and be like, God damn it, I told them not to send this in the email template. They send it in the email template. Or they're going to come back to you and go, we just don't do that. So that's what you're looking for, right? I'll give you another example of it. A couple years ago in one of the lift notes, I wanted to make it feel very personal. I wrote a lift note and then I wrote a PS that said, hey, even if you don't click that link above, write me back, respond to this email and tell me why you didn't find this urgent or important enough to click that link. And people go, you want them to respond to the email even if they don't buy? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, well, we don't have an email box set up to monitor these hundreds of replies that are going to come in. And I'm like, I know, but I want them doing something with that email. Well, what do you want done with the emails that come back that reply? I'm like, I just sit there. I don't care what happens with them. I just want someone to interact with this email. They're like, no, I don't know. This is blowing my circuitry, right? Like, we can't have people just responding back to our lift note. We can't be inviting them to respond back to lift notes. So that's what you're looking for. And if you're looking for, does this make someone uncomfortable? Again, not from an HR perspective, but from a job-based perspective. You're looking for them to say, that's just not the way we do things. And if that's the case, that doesn't guarantee a 20% clicking lift note. But what they're doing is they're being a filter for the subscriber, saying, I've never seen this before. This is weird. This is strange. This is unique. I can't put it in a category and dismiss it. So if you ask yourself those three questions, what can I do to make this look and feel different? When is this being sent and to what list? And will it make someone in our office uncomfortable? I'll give you another example of that. I wrote a lift note a couple years ago about taxes. We had a tax thing about how to minimize your taxes legally. And at the bottom, I said, hey, A, if you've already filed your taxes this year, click this link. Or B, if you haven't yet filed your taxes, click this link. And they both went to the same promo, right? And people internally were like, no, it's short-circuiting my brain. I don't understand. Like, you want these both to go to the same promo link, but you're asking people two different questions. Like, if you filed your taxes, click here. If you haven't filed your taxes, click here. Like, I don't understand what you want to do. I'm like, well, I want to drive clicks to the promo, and I feel like you're only in one of those two categories, and I'm telling you to click the link for both categories. So, like, if you can get into somewhat of professional arguments with your coworkers, you normally know you got something going on in that lift note that is going to be different and strange and weird and unique enough to have the same conversation go on with the reader's mind. And the reader's not going to find it, offensive from a job-based perspective. They're just going to look at it and say, I can't categorize and dismiss this. Like, this is something I've never seen before. I've never seen somebody asking me to reply to an email and tell them why I didn't want to click that link. Like, so you're getting interaction. Or I've never seen someone ask me, I do it with the free books too. So it's like, hey, click here if you'd like to claim your free book. Or click here if you'd like to learn more information before you claim your free book. Or, hey, tracking number, if you put a tracking number in the subject line, which legal gets on us a little bit more about, but in the good old days, we could do it. Hey, tracking number, and then I would just make up a tracking number. And then at the bottom, you'd be like, click here to accept your package. Or click here to learn how to accept your package, right? So I'm trying to offer like forced choices almost. And that freaks people out in the office because they don't know what you're doing. And they'll come back to you and say, well, I don't know how we put a tracking number in the subject line. We'll just put 5 things about that look like a FedEx thing and then put 4 X's and put a parenthesis that says last 4 digits redacted for privacy concern, whatever. Because they'll be like, we can't give them an actual tracking number. Anyway, that's what you're looking for, is for someone in the office to be like, that's weird. Like, why are we doing it that way? Again, full context, not that someone's going to come back and go, Ryan McGrath just totally creeped me out and I need to go to HR. That's not the uncomfortableness that you're looking for. Does that make sense?
Thanks for that.
I'm creeped out. Now Ryan's going to say, I'm going to go to HR and say, he's creeped out by me.
So I'll go through some of these really quick, and I'll just point out like one interesting thing in all these examples. First one here, I'll point out is just like I'm talking about like blind links. This is Rob Raddick wrote this one, crushed it, and you can see it totally blind. You don't. There's like 5 cryptocurrencies. To find out the 5, you have to click. So that's a good example of blind links. This one down here with picture of Joe, which again is a homemade image. I think the thing that's notable about that is like click here to watch this short 3-minute video. Takes a lot longer than 3 minutes, but I don't know how we got away with that. But is that just the intro or something?
Yeah, it was just the intro.
The intro is only 3 minutes. I guess it was that was like the live on the streets, and then it went to like more of VSL.
Yep.
So that's the 3 minutes.
It's also had some voyeurism in there, right?
Right.
You know what this man's going to reveal on camera.
The Trump one, obviously a picture of Trump at the time was a big pushing the authority button. The thing about photos is that a good, interesting source for photos is anything the U.S. government publishes is public domain. So if you find like President Trump's personal email or photos, whatever that site is that has all the photos, I forgot what it's called, but like whatever, anything on any government website or taken by a government official is public domain. So if you can find an official Trump photo or even one that is on a government website of any type, then it's public domain. The question?
On the crypto one, you only have 500, and something worth like maybe 6, like a question mark, something like that.
What do you mean?
On the crypto side, you got these 5 this after the view, you put like 6 and then like have like a
Yeah.
question mark.
Yeah, probably. I mean, this next one I want to kind of point out is a good case study in the power of writing powerful lift, because this particular one, we had a promotion about, there's a service we call the Military Technology Alert, which was the idea of it was that you could find companies that were connected to the defense industry. You can make a lot of money because the government was putting a lot of money into defense at the time, Homeland Security specifically. And actually, it was actually about cyber warfare, was really the particular investments were cyber security companies, basically. The hook of that promotion was about the black budget, which was the budget that Edward Snowden leaked to the Washington Post. And the idea of it was like, you know, it's like inside the black budget, there's a way to make money. That was kind of the hook of the promotion. That promotion did maybe like $2 or $3 million. And then actually Diana Gordon, copywriter in Florida, wrote this lift note for it, which again, you can see is a very loose connection to that idea. You can read it yourself, but really it's talking about how the Pentagon is creating this secret army in a specific location in Maryland, which actually is the Pentagon. And they've been caught, and we're going to reveal all about the secret army. At the time, you got to realize this was like, I don't know, 2014, kind of peak Obama. Our audience had a lot of paranoid beliefs about shit at that point. I mean, people were putting emails out about like the FEMA death camps and how there's like 200,000 plastic coffins they're creating to eliminate the Patriots. I mean, that's the kind of stuff people were seeing in their inbox. So a secret army getting, you know, assembled in the Pentagon kind of freaked people out, right? Well, the secret army was just really the cyber warfare division of the Pentagon that kind of tied loosely to the investment picks of that service, which were cybersecurity companies. You see, that's kind of a loose connection. What we actually did with this particular lift is we actually turned this into a relead of that promo, almost using the exact words verbatim for the first couple of paragraphs. And that promo ended up generating another $2 million. So when you write a lift, that, and I think the click-through rate on this was like 47% or some sort of ridiculous amount. So if you can write a lift that crushes, especially in the back end, you might want to consider, can I turn this to a relead? Because it just shows that people are very interested and you caught people's attention and they obviously hit some sort of hot button. You can probably, and if there's a loose connection that you're able to tie this to the promotion, there's probably a way you could just put it right on top and connect it to the existing copy. Next example, famous millionaire, Amazon wants to shock America's retirement. I think this is really interesting because it's all about James Altucher, but they kept James blind, which is kind of an obvious thing, but it kind of adds a lot of curiosity, especially scaling up. You know, someone might have missed that because they might just assume everybody knows who James is or is going to guess, and they wouldn't. Next one, from Jim Records. Just want to note the subject line on that one. It actually says from Jim Records in their inbox, is what it said.
And it was sent to Jim's files, so they had awareness of it.
Urgent, did not file their taxes yet. I just wanted to note that this one was sent in April, right before tax day on the 15th.
Again, this is why, going back to the previous one, if you don't know which file you're writing to, you can't write something for Jim Records unless you know it's going to Jim's files. And going to this one, if you don't know what time it's being sent, you can't write a lift note, because if you want to say, hey, tax day is tomorrow, but it not being sent for 3 more weeks, because that's what a marketing manager saw, then that doesn't make any sense.
Our relationship is at risk. Pretty blind headlines from Alan Buckman. Extremely blind. It doesn't really say anything. This again went to, I'm assuming, people who are familiar with Alan at this point, but you can see the information gap there. It doesn't really say anything. Pretty blind.
Would have been better if we would have lowercase the subject line and if we would have just signed it Alan. Because if you have a relationship with someone, it's rare that you sign your last name and title case everything.
Do you know where these links went?
For that one, I think it either went to Weekly Wealth Alert or 42-Day Retirement Plan.
Is there like eventually testimonials? Does it ever tie into this?
I don't think so.
I'm
sure
just
they're in there
went through and
somewhere.
pulled, like, if I could find like 30 to 40% click-through rates in the last, I went back a couple of years even, but it's definitely the last 6 months, a lot of it's from there.
Yeah, at some point, I'm sure it'll get to testimonies, but no, it didn't go to anything normal, anything other than a normal promo.
The next one's an example of like a forward that we talked about before. You can say it says, hey, subscriber name, which is hopefully Ryan and not customer. What's it say? If it says not a name, I think it's what it says, but it says the first name, and then I know it's Saturday, but I want to make sure some important emails the other day. See below, sincerely, Jim.
So that's a great example of one of the forwards that we talked about.
And you can see it has like the little original message thing like you would find in a real Outlook email, but that's our designers had to put that in to look that way. In fact, when I wrote this, I put it in so they know that's what I want it to look like. This one I just thought is like a good example of like the free book template. We've used it a lot for different books.
This lift used to be like 5 times better because I wrote the original version of it and then legal butchered it over the years because it worked too well. So this is what you get left with. The original version was so much better. Because basically I was making it seem like, your book was stuck at the post office and you needed to do something to get your book to you.
You can't do any of that stuff.
Too transactional.
Yeah, too transactional. I was too transactional. I tried to improve too many people's lives by getting them to make a book of it.
This one I think Scott Bradley wrote for his marijuana promotion. I'll just note this one, there's a PS in the bottom. Sometimes you hear people say, the PS is the most read thing in a promotion. That was probably true when people actually had direct mail and they had a whole stack of, they opened up an envelope and they wanted to see who it was from. You could look to see where the letter's from. That's not necessarily true now. It's one of those things like you can tell real amateur because they'll say something like, always use a PS. It increases response by 331.2%. Okay, it's not true. It is cool to put a PS sometimes, and especially if other people are not doing it. Like in this case, it makes it look a little personal. And it's another place to put a clicker now. This one is interesting because it's a real good example of the rule of 1. It's all about Social Security. This one here, I wrote this in literally 30 seconds because I had to write a bunch of lists and I ran out of ideas. The butt ugly truth about Bitcoin, which is totally not congruent of anything James would say, but it was going on James promotion. I think it worked because butt ugly truth is just a weird, quirky word combination. At the time, Bitcoin was hot, and the butt ugly truth could be the truth could be make a lot of money, and the butt ugly truth could be you'll lose all your money. Is this the real October surprise? I'm guessing this probably went out in September or October. The October surprise, of course, is that mystical thing that happens that people are expecting to happen every presidential election, because it happened once with Ronald Reagan in 1980. So people always talk about it. It's going to happen. But the time the election was in the news, so.
Hey, what's the October surprise? What happened?
Well, Ronald Reagan, he made basically a deal to released the Iranian hostages. They released the news like a couple of days before the election, or in October, elections in November. It's like just become like a metaphor in the media for like a last minute surprise that's going to change an election.
Stick on this for just a second. I just want to hammer this because I brought it up like 18 times, and I'm going to bring it up the 19th time right now. This is what happens again if you have a marketing manager tell you, I need 5 lifts, and you write 5 lifts, and they don't tell you when it's going. I've literally seen where someone in our business would pick up a lift like this and run it in November. And then they come back to you and they go, you lifted one. I was like, did you fucking read it? Because you shouldn't have fucking sent it 16 days after I told you that there's going to be a surprise happening the previous fucking month. Okay, that's it.
I'll tell you a funny story. It relates to the last election, like 2 years ago, is apparently people bought all this media in October, November, assuming that Hillary was going to win the election. So we kept seeing emails going out to some of the lists that we use as well. Like, I don't think it ever showed up on Newsmax, but some of the other ones, like Survival, whatever, blah, 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 Second Amendment. And it's like, Hillary just won the presidency. Click here now. Those probably didn't work. Maybe they work because they're a pattern interrupts. People are like, yeah, exactly. Here's an example of a quiz. Which you find fun to work. All the links go to the promo. It's kind of a fake quiz in the sense where it doesn't really matter what they click.
Quizzes typically get a gazillion clicks, but they'll kill your conversion rate. So you have to pay attention to stuff like that. At the end of the day, you care about orders. So maybe if you get 4x the click volume, but you cut your order volume in half, or I'm sorry, you cut your conversion in half, maybe you still end up with more orders with that. But again, you're going to see some weird data. You'll see like 55% click-through rates and a killed conversion rate. At the end of the day, the question is, did it produce more orders than a little bit more direct lift with a lower click-through rate, but a higher conversion? So just pay attention. When you do lifts like, quizzes and stuff, your data is going to go cattywampus. You're just going to get huge click-through rates and killed conversion rates. So just pay attention to those.
Next one has kind of a quirky thing like holy cow. You don't see that very often in emails, but it's kind of a social proof template. Again, it's extremely blind. You don't know what video it's talking about or what the topic of the video is or what the promo is about. Just the fact that a lot of people are looking at it. So take a look. Last example is kind of an example of controversy, but also I'd say voyeurism. Agora Financial. Ad or under investigation. Ooh, someone's in trouble. And click and watch, right? So, I mean, that's kind of an example of using voyeurism. And again, it's very indirect. It has nothing whatsoever really to do with the promo at all. It's just, I'm guessing it's probably for promotion had been around a while and they needed a new way to get eyeballs to it. So they had to do something really indirect.
Let's talk about one more thing that you guys control and from an extreme ownership you should make sure you pay attention to. And I'm going to get to this in a little bit circular way. When you wake up in the morning, how many people look at their phone pretty quickly within the time they wake up? How many people look at their email on their phone pretty quickly? What do you do with all those emails that you got from whatever point you went to bed that night to the point that you wake up? What do you do with those emails? You ignore them. Yeah. Who else ignores and or deletes most of the email that comes in from, let's say, midnight or whatever time you go to bed to whatever time you wake up? Who deletes or ignores those things? Okay. Let's ask this a different way. You go home, and let's say all of us are working late-ish, so we get home at 7 o'clock at night. From 7 o'clock at night to 10 o'clock, what are you typically doing at home? What's that? So you watch Fox News, maybe eat some dinner, maybe you spend time with your family, maybe if you got kids, you're chasing them around, putting them to bed. And then right before bedtime, you look at your phone again?
Yeah.
What do you do with those emails that you got from 7 o'clock typically, at the point you called it out of work, to the point that you want to go ahead and fall asleep for the night? What do you typically do with those emails?
Make sure I don't have anything I have to do pressing.
Yep. And for the ones that aren't pressing, what do you do? You delete them. Okay, so let's think about that, right? So from, pick a time, 6-ish, 7-ish So whatever time you go to bed, most people are going to delete emails. And from that point that you go to bed to the point that you wake up the next morning, you're deleting a lot of emails, right? So as a email marketing company, when do you not want to send someone an email? I'm sorry? Midnight. Because you're going to find that you're in their morning purge, right? Another probably bad time would be to send it to them maybe around 8 o'clock at night if there's no urgency to that email, because you're going to end up in that delete pile as well come the end of the night, right? Okay. So I say all that to say that you should control the timing of when your emails go out. And this is for you in extreme ownership, because I've seen that as our business grows, we're making a lot of mistakes where, it's very process oriented right now. So you guys write a lift note, then it's got to go to somebody, and then that somebody sends it to compliance, and then the compliance team edits it, sends it back to you, and then you do something with it, and then someone says, oh God, we got to copy edit all lift notes to make sure the commas are in the right place. And then 4, 5, 6 hours later, it ends up on an email sender's desk, and the email sender says, this is the last email I have to send before I go home. So I'm going to schedule this thing for 7 o'clock tonight, and I'm going to leave. Okay? You will get deleted at 7 o'clock at night. You will find that your open rates are very low when you send your lift notes out at 7. Or the person says, hey, I'm smart enough to realize that I'm about to leave. This is the last email that I need to send for the day before I go home. I'm going to schedule it for 6 o'clock tomorrow morning because I know emails don't get read, at 8 o'clock at night. And then at 6 o'clock in the morning, your email goes out, and guess what happens again? You end up in someone's morning purge email. So make sure you control the timing. Make sure that you work with somebody. But you generally, and this changes by the day, so take this for what it's worth, but you want to be in someone's email box normally around 9:30 to say 4 p.m.-ish. That's going to be a decent window.
Does that include weekends?
Weekends are going to be much different, I would say. Just for general purposes, let's say yes.
Okay.
And again, I say general because our email system is not smart enough. There's 2 different ways that email is moving. A lot of outside companies have email systems that have a time warp feature or something like that, where you could say, look, I want to send this to this person at 9:30 of their time. So, 9:30 here, right, is much different. You send an email here at 9:30, you end up still in someone's purge on the West Coast, which is 6:30 a.m. So a lot of the new email systems have time warp features where you could say, look, I want to send this email at 9:30, that person's time. Where it's further moving into is like in the world of big data and AI. We now have so much data that we can really determine when customer A is most likely to open email versus customer B versus customer C. So where email marketing is moving is that you have a smart database filled with all this data that you could hit send on an email, and it sends everything differently to that unique customer based on times that we know they're most likely to open emails based on their specific customer. That's where it's moving. For right now, though, we're in like the dark, dumb ages, which is you got to hit send on an email at some point. It's going to everybody at the same time. Try to make that between 9:30 and 4 p.m. I've seen things go out at like 7 p.m., 8 p.m., 9 p.m. They get shit results. And I've seen stuff get sent at 5:30 a.m. and get shit results.
Is that tracked the content?
It can be an iris.
Okay.
There is a field in
I
iris.
just want to know if we have like a crappy list where we can check people who sent it on time and maybe send.
Yeah, in iris, and certain people are filling this in and other people aren't from the email sending side, but there is a time stamp feature in iris that you could say, yeah, I'm sending this at 8 a.m. or I'm sending this at 6 p.m. So again, that's up for you, right? So like if you're working with somebody, I'd find out who's sending that email and be like, hey, can you put the time in there that you're sending that email? Or can you let me know if you can't get this out between 9:30 and 4:30 or whatever it might be, hey, let me know. And I might work with somebody to do things a little bit differently. You're going to run into some resistance here because certain times we're sending things because we need to make revenue targets at certain times. Right. But there's going to be always a way to make it work.
I would say that you probably don't want to look and use that as justification why your email didn't work, because chances are, just like your promotion, it didn't work because the idea was bad. Okay. But if you're going to spend all the time and effort to do this, you might as well have the wind at your back. And so just communicating in person, when are you sending this? And if they can you give me a time, and they say 6 a.m. tomorrow morning, you say, how about instead we do it 11 a.m. All right.
I think that's great. I will try to do that going forward. The extreme ownership thing, I've had to deal with that where like I read just the space of this happened last week. My space said this looks too different. Like we all I had to like, it was like Slack 10 Slack messages going back and forth. Like, hey, that's awesome. Please run the goddamn space app.
So,
but like, if I'm willing to bet you $50 that if the next lift note I write and I say, I want you to send this at 4:30, they're gonna go, I already have a fucking schedule, dude. Like, well, do they even know that like a copywriter can be like, I want you to write it at this time? You know what I mean? That sounds like they'd be like, who the fuck are you, like, a copywriter?
Well, I mean, part of it again is like the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, right? You don't want to have to get to the point to tell somebody to do it because they're going to automatically be resistant.
I get the whole interpersonal relationship thing like that. That's fine. I personally have almost like maxed that out. Like, if there's anything I'm good at that.
Yeah. So
like, when it comes to like,
let me unpackage that.
Their mind wouldn't almost register that we could tell them what time they can send a fucking email.
Yeah. So let me unpack that because I think you got two different things there, right? One is, hey, you wrote a lift note or a space ad that looks too different. We need to change it. That's a problem. So if that happens, go talk to the publisher of that imprint or talk to me, and we'll fix that for you. So if you guys run into things where people are just like, that's just not the way we do things and it's too weird, we're going to change it. Talk to the publisher or talk to me, we'll fix it. Second thing is like, hey, I'm writing this email. I want you to send it at 4:30, right? That's a little bit different problem, which is what I would say is, hey, if this is going out later than 4:30, can you let me know? Because I might want to change some stuff, or I might want to talk to you about the send time because I know, because they probably don't know, that when we send lift notes at night, they're probably not going to get the sale. So maybe it's just better to wait till 9:30 tomorrow morning. So I would say be less commanding with that one, but just let them know that if it's being sent later than what you want it sent, just to talk to you, and you guys can figure it out, right? So it doesn't have to be, I want you to send this at 4:31 a.m. It's just, give me a heads up if you're not sending this before 4:30, and I might manipulate and change the way that I want to do this lift. So I think there's a little bit different discussion there. But if someone's ever telling you, no, this is too different than the way we do things, I don't want to do it, that's crazy. That's just a symptom of the business getting big. So that will change that one. Were you going to say something too?
No, it's probably more, I mean, I believe it or not, I ran that frustration yesterday. Like, actually, when I was leaving the building yesterday, I talked to someone about running lifts, doing a lift test, and was told, this is yesterday, 4 or something like that, when I finally got the stuff back from legal, and then was told, we'll run on Saturday, which I thought was fine. And then I found out, hey, we actually want to run it sooner than that. But I didn't know I had the authority. I mean, I guess I'm trying to find the balance between being a hard ass and an asshole. So I don't mind being either one if the situation's right, but I certainly don't want to just be an asshole to be an asshole. So I felt like I was a little frustrated when I left yesterday, as I'm like, well, had I known that it was that much of a priority, I would have at least said, but that's probably just an individual circumstance.
I think you guys will figure it out.
I mean, part of it too is like, if you build up a reputation as someone that gets results and is aggressive, ferocious, then that's how people are going to expect that and treat you. In the beginning, they're going to be like, oh, who's this guy? You know what I mean? Most copywriters just let the marketers push them around for the most part. We're trying to teach you guys a different way so you can start the relationship out the right way, the way it should be. And unfortunately, I mean, most copywriters are lazy. I mean, even in our business, there are probably some that just, okay, that works. And they're handing over their extreme ownership to somebody else who's not incentivized to have it work. And that's the risk they're taking.
We said we were going to be short, and we bumped up all the way against the 2-hour mark.
Yeah, always do.
I do have one thing for you guys before we roll, but can you talk for just a moment about what Monday is, and then I'll pull the thing up?
Yep. So Monday, we're going to do mostly Q&A. So write down all the questions you guys have not had answered, clarifications. Think all the way back to the first session. Look in your notes. What are the missing pieces? It's going to be kind of the last chance you guys get in this camp. It is the last chance in this camp to get those kind of questions answered. You can always come to us one-on-one, but it'd be cool to have them so everybody can learn. And then how week begins immediately after this class. You'll have a full week to end of day the following Monday to turn in your promotion, close the business. So 5 o'clock Monday the 2nd? Yeah. You must turn in a promotion to graduate from this course.
Or the Monday after.
Not this Monday, but the following Monday, the 2nd. Yeah.
Turn it to legal, turn it to.
Turn it into me and Joe.
That was my question.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Here's a little assignment for you guys. This was sent to me from Newsmax today, as you can see, from 8:06 a.m. This is an external media buy, obviously, for one of our promos. So you could see, basically, when we buy Newsmax, when we buy what's called a space ad in Newsmax, we get two things. Do you see where it says special? I wish I could point to it, but it's like third line down and it's in red, special. Scott, can you point to it? Thank you very much. So we get that text line right there, and we get this sponsorship advertisement right here. And if you click that, obviously that sponsorship advertisement goes to one of our promos, and it looks like it goes to the $11.1 trillion Trump retirement roadmap. And you can see that the sales letter would start playing. So what I'd like for you guys to do is tell me, this is in Iris, right? So everything we do is in Iris, has a corresponding effort in Iris. Tell me how much that ad by Monday. Tell me how much that ad cost us. And tell us how many sales it brought in. And tell us what the CPA was. They're the three things that we want to know. How much did that ad cost us? How much did this ad bring in by Monday morning? And what was the CPA? And if you remember, CPA is different than allowable CPA. All CPA is the number of sales divided by the cost, or the cost of it, let's say the ad divided by the number of sales. So again, you got 10,000, I'll make it really easy. If you got a $100 ad buy and you bring in 100 sales, what's your CPA? $1, right? So you divide $100 by 100 sales. So tell me what that ad cost, tell me how much it made, tell us what the CPA was on that ad. So that's what I'm giving you to work with. It was sent to Newsmax today. It's a space ad / sponsorship. And it clicks through to the $11.1 trillion Trump retirement roadmap. It goes to 7-figure formula, if you want to know. That's the pub. It's SFF is the pub. And if you guys don't know how to do that, then find somebody in the building that does know how to answer those questions and tell them not to answer the questions for you, but to show you how to get the answers. Is that cool?
So Monday here, 8 o'clock.
We'll be short.
Yeah, we're real short. No camp Wednesday. Last one is Monday. Who learned something today? Brandon?
Sometimes I'll be talking to the marketing people about that.
Okay, good.
And again, like Rob said, right? Don't. You're not going to win friends if you command them to send at certain times. Just tell them that you're willing to work with them if it's not being sent within a certain time that you'd like to know, because maybe that changes how you would do the lift. Does everybody understand that nuance? It's much different than being a tyrant and saying, I want you to send this at 11:32 a.m. and if you don't, I'm going to be pissed off at you. Hey, just try to send in these hours. And if you can't, let me know, because it'll change the way I do things.
Who learned something about being ferocious? Scott?
Just always something else to catch you kill.
Okay, that's a good way. Do that too.
I have a question. How would you change it if it was sent after, like during that period?
I try my best not to do it. If I absolutely had to do it for some reason, I might maybe write an opening line that might be different. Hey, before you go to bed tonight, it's urgent that you watch this right now. Use something like that. I would try to catch the reader in the state that I think they're in and tell them that they need to read this right now, which I'd increase the urgency. That would be it. If I had to send it, I'd say, hey, I know I'm sending this to you around dinner time, but yeah, please go in the other room and let your dinner get cold because you need to watch this in a quiet place right now. Something like that.
I very much like your perspective that you are giving people choices. That's powerful for them.
Good. Anyone else?
Yeah, there's other questions to ask yourself before writing influence.
It's good.
Cool. Context with the uncomfortableness. Remember that.
So it could be the calm before the storm this weekend. Maybe you want to get ahead and start writing now if you have to. Your choice.
Okay, see you guys Monday.
Hey, Joe.
Yes, sir.
I put aside block out some time for you on Monday again for the event.